So in terms of what's occurred today in the Delphi trial, when I scroll through YouTube and when I scroll through X, there is a lot of discussion occurring about the one witness that there was today and about the bullet and the gun and all that stuff. But it seems like there's barely any mention of the juror who was excused. So, for those of you who may have missed it, and it's quite possible that you may have because it has been barely mentioned, one juror was absent when everyone returned after lunch from court. And what's come out is that juror was excused, and apparently media have asked Judge Gull for clarification, and she said that they were excused because of family emergency. Now, my original question was, the first source that I found talking about the missing juror said that one of the seats for the alternates was empty. And my question was, does that mean that it was an alternate who was excused? Or does that mean that a juror was excused and alternate was put up into the jury pool? Turns out it was an alternate juror who was excused by the judge for a family emergency. I also saw someone question, well, I don't know if that means that they're gone for good or they're coming back. Now, to me, that seems like it wouldn't be possible because the juror has now missed a full half day of the trial and missed some rather crucial information. So you had the defence doing a cross with the witness, and it sounds like it was quite an intensive day. So it's my understanding that if a juror is going to miss a day of the trial, then they are basically therefore done and dusted. So, in which case, that means that 1 week into a 4-week trial, there are now only 3 of 4 alternates left. And I think a lot of people are like, well, okay, no big deal. But here's where I become a little bit concerned. Now, some of you may have followed the Kristen Smart case several years back. I think that was roughly 2 years ago, about maybe July of 2022, that Paul Flores was on trial for the murder of Kristen Smart. Now, that trial was a rather lengthy trial. It was certainly a rather detailed trial. Thankfully, for those of us that were following it, it wasn't such a big secret like the Delphi trial. But it was certainly a detailed trial, and there were some days that were really hard on jurors. There was one particular day when one juror burst into tears when they were looking at evidence from under Ruben's deck, and you could see the staining in the soil that suggested that that was where a body had been buried. One of the jurors became visibly upset and they had to take a break. But that's kind of me getting a little bit off track, but there will be a video coming up about that soon because there's been a change of circumstances with regards to Paul Flores. So if you are interested in the Kristen Smart case, keep an eye out for that video. But what I'm getting at here is that while the Kristen Smart trial did go for longer than what the Delphi trial is anticipated to go for, there's a few differences here, and that is that the jurors in the Kristen Smart trial were allowed to go home at the end of the day. They also didn't sit on a Saturday. So while it was a very hard trial to sit through, they did at least have the comfort of going home at the end of the day. They didn't have to sit on a Saturday. And you may also be aware it was a nobody trial. They still have not found Kristen Smart's remains. So there wasn't any of the really intensive stuff that has been shown during the Delphi trial. So I think emotionally, for the jurors on the Delphi trial, this is really challenging. They're 2 hours from home, I believe it is. They can't go home. They're stuck in a hotel for the next month. Apparently the judge is allowing them excursions, whatever that means. But essentially, they are sequestered for the full month of the trial. The only time they're allowed to talk to family is under supervision, and that is via phone or I presume that's the only way. But either way, communication with family is supervised. And of course you have these long days. You have some really horrific things for them to hear and to look at. And in addition to that, it's actually a 5.5 day week instead of a 5 day week. So this is going to be really, really taxing on jurors. And why am I making a comparison here between the two cases? Well, here's the thing. At the start of the Kristen Smart case, there were 8 alternate jurors. And what happened as the case progressed was that they did lose multiple jurors. Now, I've tried to find articles to find out how many jurors it was because I've forgotten. That's well over 2 years ago now. And I can't find any details about how many jurors they lost during the trial. But they did lose quite a few jurors during the Kristen Smart trial. So much so that there was one point where a juror was going to be absent for the day, and Judge O'Keefe, rather than therefore dismissing that juror and having one less alternate, basically paused the trial for a day to allow that juror to do whatever it was they needed to do and then come back the following day. Which also goes to the point with this probably means that the juror who was absent in the afternoon session for the Delphi trial won't be back. I really can't see how legally that could be possible. So with the Delphi trial, you only have we only started with 4 alternates. It's half the number of alternates that there were in the Kristen Smart trial. And getting towards the end of the Kristen Smart trial, they were running out of alternates. They were having to make adjustments to when the court was going to sit to make sure that they were not going to lose any more jurors because they could not afford to lose more jurors in case they ran out of alternates. So, like I said, Kristen Smart trial, 8 alternates. And they went through many of them and were getting low on alternates by the end of the trial. I believe it was a slightly longer trial, but like I said, it wasn't nearly as intense as this Delphi trial. And it was a nobody trial, and the jurors were at least able to go home at the end of the day. And they didn't have that extra day, half day on a Saturday. So, you have this trial where there were only 4 alternates and one's gone. That leaves 3 alternates and 3 weeks left of trial. And these guys are separated from their families, separated from their world. They are just about incarcerated themselves. You know, they are sequestered. They can't just go wherever they want. They can't go and see their family. When they talk to their family, it's supervised. All these things are going to add to the already stressful task of being a juror. Imagine yourself having to sit through a traumatic trial and not having access to your usual comforts. That's got to be taxing. So my concern is, has Judge Gull made a huge mistake with only having 4 alternate jurors for this trial? What happens if we run out of alternate jurors and you have a jury of 12? That's when things get dicey. Because if you have no more alternates and you lose another juror, that becomes a mistrial. And they have to dismiss the jury, they have to get a new jury, and they have to start the trial again. Now, hopefully that's not going to happen. And I'm not sure if there is precedent for that having occurred in the past. But we are talking about a really difficult trial here. We're talking about a judge who doesn't seem very good at making accommodations. And another thing that I know some of the jurors in the Kristen Smart trial, I'm just going to use that because that's what I was talking about before. A lot of them found the way that the prosecutors or the defence team were talking, the really confrontational way of them doing that, to be traumatic. Now, it sounds like both sides in the Delphi trial are pretty professional and perhaps not as confrontational as was in the Kristen Smart trial, but like I said, it's all happening behind doors. We're relying on accounts from those people who are there, so who knows. But it's certainly something to consider. 1 alternate down, 3 alternates left, 3 more weeks of trial. Is this a concern? I'm not a legal analyst, so I can't tell you. But to me, I do find it a little bit concerning. So thanks for listening. If you're new, please hit the like button. Also, please subscribe to my channel and leave a comment below. What are your thoughts in terms of there only being 4 alternate jurors? Do you think that is going to be enough?